So let's go ahead and see if our transfer slots function works. And it does. Hey there, I'm your host Lesawi, and this is part 11 of our inventory series. In today's video, we'll be creating the transfer slots function. So with that said, let's begin. Let's start by going to our content drawer, inventory system, and our inventory component. Inside on the event graph, we'll right click and do a custom event. Now we want this to be update inventory. And this event will call our event dispatcher. So let's do a call. And that's that. We'll be using this in a moment. Next, we'll go ahead and create a function called transfer slots. Now this needs to have the index of the current inventory, the index of the inventory we're dragging from, and it needs to have a reference of the inventory we're dragging from. So on the inputs, we'll create one called index, which will be an integer. We of course want the source index, the one we're dragging from, and the source inventory. And this needs to be a component of that inventory, so inventory component. Okay, next, we'd like to promote these inventories to a slot. So let's do item slots to get a copy of the index. So get index. By the way, if you're doing it this way, you're just ensuring that there's no lines being dragged along. It's the exact same thing here. And we'll do a promote to a local variable, local underscore destination slot. So that way we're just getting a copy of that exact slot we're wanting to change. And we'll do exactly the same thing, get source inventory. And the reason we're doing the source inventory, because we need to get the item slots from here, not from this one. That's the destination. So get item slots. We can then copy the copy node, and the index will be source index. Oh, source index. There we go. And promote to local, local underscore source slot. There we go. Next, we'll do a sequence like so. And on one, we can have the item sound effects and all of that happening. So we could actually go ahead and do that. Play item sound effects. Sound will need to come from somewhere. We don't have an item ID pin in here, but we do have a source slot. So we can do a break. Now we have an item ID. All we need is the get item sound effects. Plug that in. Hide unconnected pins. Pretty much golden. Break this open, and we want the move sound because we're moving around. So do that, hit Q, and everything looks nice. Somewhat, almost. Okay, next we want to update the inventory because if we're changing something in it, we need to be able to refresh it as well. And we don't want to update just the current inventory. We need to update both of them. So that event we made, this guy, in here, let's go back. And if we click on the dropdown, it should show up for you, update inventory. Now you want both, you want two of these, one for the current and one for the source. So for the source, all you got to do is copy that, plug it in there. Now it's going to update the source inventory, and this will update the current. Okay, with that out of the way, let's grab a branch. And I want to compare if these items that we're dragging, if they're the same or not. Because if they're not the same, we just want to swap them around. But if they are the same, we want to add them together if they can be added together, because the slot quantity might not be enough to hold the full stack. So, right. Let's do get source slot. And I have this here actually, and get destination. And break this open. We just want to see if the item IDs are the same. So we can hide that, copy paste it. And this will go into the condition. So we're just checking for the item IDs, if they're matching. So if they are not, we'll swap them around. So this is the easy part, add to new slot. You want two of these, one for the source, one for the current. This goes, whoop, this goes there. And this goes here. And we are doing the vice versa. So the source was going to get the destination, and the destination is going to get the source. So break that open, item ID to item ID, item quantity, whoop, like that. And the index will go get source index. And then we'll do the opposite. So get index our current one, and we want source slot. Break it open. Item ID to item ID, and item quantity to item quantity. Give ourselves some room, and that's looking good. Next, we wanted to create the item transfer function. So let's go ahead and do that. And this will take care of doing all the maths. So item transfer. Inside here, we are going to need several things. So let's go on the right-hand side. Inside here, we are going to need several things. So let's click on the item transfer function, click on the inputs, and our first input, we want to be our source inventory. And this needs to be of the inventory component type. So VPC underscore inventory. Next, we want the source slot, which is going to be of type S underscore item slot. So that's struct we made. We want also the destination slot. And then we want the indexes. So we want the index of the current inventory we're dragging to and from. So source index as well. And that's all. Next, we want to get a hold of these guys. So get source slot first, get destination as well. And we want to add them together and see if the quantity is greater than what it can hold in the actual slot. So we'll do a break. Here as well, we can do add on the item quantities. We can hide the item ID here. We don't need that. We want the get item data to go in here and see if the slot quantity here is greater. Bring this pin on the bottom one. And let's hide everything here. We don't need anything else. We'll get a branch execution pin, goes all the way here. We bring this back somewhat, and that's a little better. This goes there, and the top value will come from here. So this gets promoted to a local total sum. So that's the value of both of them if they were added together. Now, if they are, if this is false, well, then we'll just add everything to one stack and make the other slot completely empty, right? But if that's not the case, then we'll just add to both as much as we can. So on false, this makes our job kind of easier. So let's get source slot, break you, we need item ID. Just item ID will do. And add to new slot. We want two of these again. One for the current and one for the source. So get source inventory, plug you in there. And we'll deal with that in a moment. This will be done first. So item ID goes there. Item slot quantity is the total sum because we're assuming it's less than the max stack. Also plug this in. I'm jumping all over the place. So we're adding them together and checking if the item ID, if that slot quantity can hold the full stack, if yes or no. If not, then we're just adding it to the one slot and making the other slot cleared. The index will be get index. Grab that. And for the second guy, plug this in. Now remember, this is completely empty. So get source slot. Get source index. My bad. Okay. True then. This is a little more complicated. I'll start off by creating a new variable local underscore subtracted sum just to make it a little easier for me to read. We'll do a set. So this is assuming that the source slot, I'll take that. We want item ID here. So I also want the quantity, slot quantity. Okay, so that's what we need here. The source slot, we break it, get item ID, item data, and then we break it to get the slot quantity. So the local total sum, so let's say we had 12. Let's say we can fit 10 in it, and we're minusing the total added sum, which is 12. So, sorry, we have 12 in here, and we're minusing 10 because that's the max quantity. So 12 minus 10, of course, is 2. So one slot will get the 10, and the other slot should get the 2. So this will go into this value there. And again, we'll get the source slot here. We can copy these guys. I'll copy them as they are. I'll have a look in a second. So the source slot is correct. I can get rid of that. The item quantity we want to be coming from whatever is left here, because we want one of them to be full. So this will come here. That will be 10 or whatever the max stack size is. The index stays as the index. Then in here, of course, it's our source inventory. Item ID should come from here because we're getting the same item in both slots. The index will be source index and the item quantity will be the subtracted sum. Put that in and press Q to straighten everything out. And it looks fine. So let's compile and save. Let's head back to our transfer slots function. Here we go. This is it. And we just need to fill this out. So let's get started. Source index goes there. Index goes there. Destination goes here, source goes here, and then source inventory goes there. Now it looks messy. Select everything, right click, go to alignment, align left. And we can just bring them up. Almost there. Close enough. Okay, so let's compile and save that. Next, we'll head into the content drawer again, inventory system, and in this folder, we'll right click and go to blueprint classes, click on all classes, and search for something called a drag drop operation. Select that and call it DDO for drag drop operation underscore item slot. Let's open that up. In here, we need a reference to the inventory and the index. So click on variables, call it inventory. You want this to be of the inventory component type, like so. And another one called index, which is a integer. Now, both of these we want to make instance editable and exposed on spawn. Go ahead and make that come true. Compile and save. Next, we'll head into our UI folder. And in here, we want to right click, create a new widget. And we'll call this widget WB underscore item slot preview. And let's open that up. Inside, you want to grab yourself a size box. Go to width override, height override. Now the original is 60 by 60. I want this to be a tiny bit smaller. So I'll do 50 by 50. Go on full screen and do desired. Next, search for a border like so. We can change its color. Something like that. On top of this, we'll grab an overlay and we'll make padding 0. Grab an image, plug it into your overlay, fill it out, and you can add a padding of 2 just so we can see that frame around it. And let's also name it img underscore item. Let's hide it then, just to make our lives easier. We'll grab a text, drag this into our overlay, just so we can see it. Click on the text, make it horizontal tree, vertical tree. Text itself, this will be overridden. We'll just say 10. For the size, we'll do 8. And the padding will do 2, 0. And this will just nicely bring it out to towards the center. And with that said, this should also be variable txt underscore item quantity. And there we have it. Let's compile and save that. Next, let's head over to the event graph. And in here, we'll begin by creating a new variable called item ID. And we want this to be of type name. And we'll make it instance editable and exposed on spawn because we need to pass that value in somehow. So on event preconstruct, what we'll do is we'll get the item ID, get row. So get data table row. The table is our dt underscore item data. Break that. And we grab our image to set brush from texture. And texture is our image. Now we'll do the same with our item quantity. And the item quantity will not come from here because that's the max slot quantity. The item quantity needs to come in this way. So item quantity also needs to be exposed integer. instance editable, and expose on spawn. We can hide that. And because we have our item quantity, get that. We can do then grab our text and do set, not a sequence, a set text, and plug that in, and it'll sort itself out and connect the execution pins. And there we go. Let's compile and save. Next, we want to head into our WB_inventory slot. So let's open that up and go to our event graph. In here, on the left-hand side, click on mouse and on preview mouse button down. That's the function we have overridden. In here then, we're checking if we are clicking with our right mouse, but we also need to check if we're clicking with our left mouse. So on false, instead of going here, what we can do is we'll grab another branch. We can copy exactly the same thing, plug it in there, and this time check if it's our left mouse button. If that's the case, we'll go ahead and create something called a detect drag if pressed. The mouse event will go into the pointer key or pointer event, and we'll return this. And if it's false, we can just go ahead and do unhandled. And that's looking good for now. Also, this should be our left mouse. Don't forget this part. Okay, let's compile and save. Next, we want to go to our functions tab and override onDrag detected. Now in here, we want to do create widget, and we're creating that item slot preview we just made. And we have our two exposed parameters, item ID, item quantity, and they can come from here, just like so. And at the end, we'll do create drag, can I not? Oh, create drag drop operation. Spelling it right would help. The default drag visual is coming from here. Payload is nothing. Don't worry about that. And this goes to the operation. So that's the onDrag detected. Let's compile and save. Next, we'll head to the functions tab again and go to onDrop. So in here, what we want to do is from the operation, we'll cast to our DDO there, drag drop operation. And in here, we have that inventory variable we made and that index. So we can compare them. So get BPC or get inventory and get index. And if this is not equal, so exclamation equals, not equal to the inventory we have here. So click on components, inventory. So the rule is the inventories cannot equal to each other or the indexes cannot be the same, because then it doesn't really make sense to drag. So we can copy that, plug it in here. And again, the index is our index here. So to do that, we'll do a or boolean. So either or can be true. And plug this into a branch. Untrue. If that's the case, we always want to return as true. So even on false, we're returning true. And here then, what we can do is we can get our inventory and call that function transfer slots. Not item transfer, just transfer slots. And this will do the item transfer. This goes here and this goes there. That's true. The index is our index yet again. And then our source stuff would be coming from here. So do a or EOR for a reroute, drag it in again. And then I can just steal that, paste it in, whoopa, all over the place. And we're pretty much finished. Let's then compile and save. So just before testing this, I noticed I made a mistake. So if you go back on your onDrag detected function, on your create drag and drop operation, I never actually specified which one to use. We want to use the DDO_item slot. Then this will give us the index option and the inventory option. So let's refresh that and let's plug these in. So inventory component goes there and the index also goes in there. Let's then compile and save that. And let's go and give this a test. So hit play, go to pick up a few items. Can we move them around? We can, and they'll swap around if they're not the same. So if we pick up a potion and we place it here, for example, pick up another one and try to add them, they'll add. And vice versa, if, well, it's just added to the stack. So that works. So this is it for the video. In the next episode, we'll be creating the hotbar interaction. With that said, I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, leave a like, and as always, happy developing!